All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Louis Lemaire. So welcome to the February edition of the CNE Branch Netherlands 2023 commemoration tour. So for tonight's topic, it's post-war reconstruction. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of technical issues if you're joining us from a recording. Hopefully, we're going to get them sorted out by the end of the recording. But if not, we may figure out another way how to publish all the information. Okay, so I'll start with a little update about the plan, how the planning committee is coming along and what details are still pending. So we're working on a lot of key things. In terms of travel, the biggest update on the financial side is that we have paid Merit Travel, our travel agency, who has organized this for us. So there's no going back. So that's a great news, and we are moving forward with everything. Looks so that on that side, that's looking good. There were a few minor details. Some folks from New Brunswick, there's some specific laws for insurance and things like that. So you know who you are, and that's we've resolved. I think we've resolved all of those, and so on the financial side, that's the great news. Another travel detail that we have is that we're working on the bus. And so I would just ask, if you're here tonight, if you can just put in the chat whether you plan on using the bus. The bus is going to be starting in Ottawa, and it's going to go to Kingston, Trenton, and then to Toronto Airport. And then the same for the way back. So I'd ask if you just put that in the chat, and I'll record that so that I have a record of that. If you're using the bus, I'll have a note for that. I'll also probably end up sending out a survey, I think, in the next couple of days. I'm trying to figure out how to send out a Google Forms to collect that information just from everybody, and then have a nice clean database, and we'll know exactly who we're picking up everywhere on the day of departure and the day of arrival. Okay, so in Europe, we're working with the Regimental Sergeant Major of the Royal Dutch Signals in Europe. We're having a meeting with him in about 2 weeks, and that's going well. We're planning for a ceremony when we visit the Dutch Signals barracks, and we also have our contacts at NATO, Lieutenant Colonel and Master Warrant Officer Canadians, that are helping us out on the ground. They're going to be attending a recce with our tour guides, who are going to hit the ground in March, and so they're going to recce some things for us and make sure all of the details on the ground are tied up before we arrive. So that's the great news that's going on there. Okay, I think that's about it for me. I know that Hugh has all the details that I've missed. So Hugh, please take it away for your update, please.
All right, thank you, Louis. Hubert Jansen here. You may see my video go on and off. I'm still trying to trace that problem down. So for the sake of your eyes and my eyes, I'll shut the video off. With respect to Merit, all the airline ticket have been booked, as well as all the insurance certificates have been done. The actual e-tickets won't be out for another couple of weeks. So within about 2 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, you'll get a message from Merit that will include your electronic ticket, whether it's from Toronto or Vancouver directly, as well as for all the tour members that have connecting flights as well. Plus, you'll have a no-fault travel insurance certificate, plus a detailed itinerary that I already currently have a sample of, but it needs a couple of loose ends need to be tied off. So it's a little bit more than what you see on our websites. So that's going very well. I spoke with the branch adjutant later tonight, and he's just going to be sending those e-transfers to our Corporal Rosehart Benellaby for the travel insurance. So you should see that tomorrow, as well as Master Corporal Hiscock and a civilian parent from 33. You should see your over contribution monies returned tomorrow as well. Oh, that's good. If you don't get it by the end of the week, please let me know and I will follow up. So far, we are holding firm at 62 full up, no name changes. We did have a small name change a couple of weeks ago from One Signals out of Edmonton, but that's all been solidified. I would also, as well as all the rooms have been booked and then they have been assigned. The Tour Sergeant Major, MWO Mike Mahar, will be getting back to you within the next 2 months of who you're bunking with. Everything's a double except for one lone male and one lone female from the sponsored serving side. Those were odd numbers, so those two people get a room all to themselves. Also like to mention that it might be an opportune time for you to view a movie. It's called The Forgotten Battle. It's on Netflix. It's not a terribly accurate historical presentation of what transpired during the Second War with respect to the Dutch people, but it does give you some insight. So it is worthwhile to see. Again, it's called The Forbidden Battle, and it's on Netflix. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Hugh. Okay, I think my video's back now. Okay, so unfortunately, I wasn't able to reach anybody from Fields of Fire. The phone went straight to voicemail. So unfortunately, I'm unable to reach them at this time. I'd like to go into the presentation from the, I think it's Petawawa and Kingston groups tonight, if you could bring that up. And we're going to proceed with that for the time being. And once again, I'm going to try while we're doing that presentation to call our tour guides and see if I can reach them. So unfortunately, we're having still some issues. So I apologize for that. So like I said, tonight's presentation is post-war reconstruction. This is really interesting because it ties the two countries together, Canada and Netherlands. I'm not sure if anybody's been to the Netherlands. I have not before personally, but I know that there's a strong bond between the two nations. The Netherlands is remarkable in that they have not forgotten Canadians who sacrificed to liberate them in 1945. Canada was, as we talked about in Operation Veritable and Blockbuster, these operations were very important in the Allied advance through the Netherlands, and then which ended up in the liberation. And to this day, Canadians are very well regarded in the Netherlands. And if you happen to be, I live in Ottawa, and one thing that is remarkable to me is every year the Ottawa has a tulip festival, and many of the tulips are sent from the Netherlands as a donation and a thank you. That is kind of it's part of their act of remembrance for what Canadians did in the Second World War to liberate them from Nazi occupation. So I'm very pleased to be able to put on this presentation tonight. I'd like to thank our presenters ahead of time, and I'll pass it over to Corporal Russi and his team to present for us tonight. Thank you.
Hey, so first I just wanted to put a face to my name. So I'm Corporal Nick Russi. I'm posted to 77 Line Regiment in Det NCR, so here in Ottawa. And like you just said, this is the Kingston and Petawawa group that's put this PowerPoint together and this presentation together, and we learned a lot throughout this presentation. I'm excited to give it to you. So without further ado, I'll start out the presentation. Okay, so can everyone hear me all right?
Yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So this presentation is on the Royal Dutch Signal Company and the post-war reconstruction. Okay, let me get rid of this Okay, so the Royal Dutch Canadian Signal Company, the unofficial unit that helped win the war. In October 1944, the 1st Canadian Army began its advance into the Netherlands. They leaned on the PTT, which was the European Post Telegraph Telephone Organization. This was a Dutch-owned public, or sorry, this was the Dutch public-owned communications company to assist in establishing communications. After entering enemy territory, two PTT workers were shot. One actually died, and the other one survived with injuries. It was later decided that if these employees were going to risk their lives to assist the military, that it was only right that they would receive military status. So Brigadier General J.E. Jeannette requested authorization to form a Dutch signal company that was attached to the Canadian Army, the Canadian Signals. This unit was made up of 60 people organized into 7 cable splicing teams, technicians, and a few essential administrative personnel. This team worked alongside the Canadian signalers for the duration of the war and helped maintain communications. After the war, the Royal Dutch Signal Company were honored by the Brigadier General Jeannette with a parade, and then the unit was disbanded. So as you can see in the top left corner, this was a World War II RCCS signaler. And in the bottom right corner, you can see that's Brigadier General Jeannette, the one that helped set all that up and actually honored the PTT and made him military for the duration. So another little tidbit that we found was that the Royal Dutch Signals Museum, there's a key place in the Netherlands to see the history of the Royal Dutch Signals Corps. So originally it was a museum in Ede, but it closed in June of 2009. It reopened in Amersfoort on 18th of February 2015. And that's ironically the 141st birthday of the Signal Regiment. Okay, so destruction of Dutch cities. So on the 10th of May 1940, the Nijmegen Road Bridge was blown up by the Dutch Army engineers, just as the Germans' forces were preparing to invade the Netherlands. The unit advanced to Nijmegen as planned, only to witness both bridges being blown as they arrived. As you can see in the picture in the top right corner, there's a bridge before it was blown apart. Okay, we'll move on to the Rotterdam Blitz. On 14th of May 1940, the Germans launched an air attack on Rotterdam. The damage in Rotterdam was the largest in an urban setting during the Second World War. Around 25,000 houses were demolished, as well as 2,500 shops, 1,200 industrial plants, 70 schools, 20 banking offices, 12 cinemas, 4 hospitals, 2 theaters, and 2 railway stations. Here's a picture of Rotterdam moments after the bombing. In 1943, the Americans joined the RAF. In February 1944, the Big Week was launched, an American offensive against the German airplane industry. Due to the lack of geographical knowledge of some pilots, this offensive proved to be fatal for some cities in the east of the Netherlands, near the German border. Arnhem was confused with Go. The Americans intended to bomb fuel tanks in Go, but struck the gas factory in Arnhem. The most severe damage was caused in Nijmegen, which was mistaken for the German city of Kleef. The inner city and the railway station with its surrounding area was destroyed. 1,270 houses vanished. 1,000 people were injured and about 800 people died. And now we're going to move on to the Battle of Arnhem. On 17th September 1944, more destruction followed. More than 5 million bombs and grenades were thrown on the villages and towns in the southwestern parts. The city of Arnhem was the victim of this. Arnhem found itself in battle and became part of the front line until 16th of April 1945. Between 23 and 25 September 1944, the residents of Arnhem were ordered by the Germans to leave the city. Arnhem became a military zone, meaning the civilians were no longer allowed to stay in the city. Anyone who did was killed. The Germans then systematically took over the empty houses. It wasn't until the 15th of April 1945, after a 4-day fight known as the Second Battle of Arnhem, the city was liberated. On 12th of April 1945, the British, the 49th West Riding Division, supported by Canadian armored units, invaded Arnhem from westerward. After 4 days of fighting in the city, Arnhem was finally liberated. When the war ended in May, the residents could go back home. So here are just a few more pictures. So here's another picture of Rotterdam after the bombing. As you could see, the central part of the city was turned to rubble. This picture of the map on the right hand side shows what kind of took place in terms of positioning of the Germans and the Allies. The 1st Canadian Army, the 2nd British Army, the 1st US Army, and the 21st Army Group all are highlighted here. This picture does a great job of providing a visual of what land was captured and the hard stance that was taken to protect any more land from being overtaken. So now we'll go into the reconstruction of the Dutch cities. So I just wanted to give you a brief description of some of the destruction that took place. So I'll go into the reconstruction. So the road bridge was reopened in 1943. The bridge went under repair and was straightened and restored on site before being raised to its original position. After the war, the reconstruction of the damaged Dutch cities began. In Rotterdam, the city was reconstructed, responding to the needs of modern traffic and business. They had a vision for reconstructing the inner city and building shops, banks, and cultural and administrative buildings there instead. They moved residential quarters from the central part of the city to the suburbs. In Arnhem, architect J.M. Vector played an important role in the reconstruction. A modern approach was taken. They have a new station building in Stationsplein, which is just Station Square, along with other buildings. On the other side of Station Square, pre-war houses can still be seen. Here is the St. Eusebius Church in Arnhem before, during, and after the war. So that's a pretty cool picture. It just shows you what changed from 1944 to here now. Okay, so again, this is central Rotterdam before the war, and this is the destroyed city memorial, which was created by Osip Zadkine in 1953 after the war. So now here, I just wanted to play this video of the Rotterdam Blitz.
So for video, I'm not sure if it's not showing for me.
That's
It
too
may
bad.
be that you're sharing the window and not the screen, so you may need to share it in a different way.
Okay, maybe I can just put the link in here. Like I'll put the link into the group, the chat after, and everyone can watch it, I guess, on their own time.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm just trying to figure out here how to. Here, where are we? Okay. Okay, so I'll put that in there, and yeah, that's everything. That's it for the presentation.
Okay, thank you. And did you have some teamwork to help you out with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So what everyone did was just email me all their sources and information they found, and I just compiled all the information and put it together in a PowerPoint.
Okay, well, it's stuff that I didn't know, so I think that's great. Very happy to have seen that. Is there anything of particular interest that you wanted to bring up, like anything that caught your eye that you didn't get a chance to mention?
Well, what's really cool that I find is the fact that we're doing that march on the Nijmegen Bridge.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was such an impactful part of the war, and that was like throughout my research, it kept popping up, and the fact that they actually had to blow up their own bridge and rebuild it. It's just something that I feel like is just gonna be extremely impactful, and it's something that I think I'm gonna keep with me for the rest of my life. Is just the fact that we're actually marching across this bridge And it's the same bridge that was such a big impact in the war.
Yeah, it's definitely historical. It elicits the the thoughts of, you know, those people who, you know, did amazing things and unthinkable things in the past, right? You can't imagine how, you know, like how many Canadians there were in this operation, right? You know, the Canadian military is much smaller today than the Second World War, and so it's just a huge amount and number of people and such a great endeavor. So, yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, lastly, sorry, the last thing I wanted to mention that I didn't put in the presentation was that after the war was over, a lot of the Dutch people, like residents, took in Canadian soldiers that were still there, that hadn't gone home yet. So they would take them in, and they would actually live in their homes with the Dutch because they were so appreciative and thankful for all their sacrifice and hard work. So it was kind of just touching on earlier when you said that Canadians are held in high regards to those people in the Netherlands, and I can attest to that just from all the research I was doing and all the findings, where that it was pretty common after the war for Canadians to be living alongside the Dutch residents.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Wonderful. So I guess I'll just throw it out to the group since we have a bit of time. Does anybody have any questions for Corporal Russi and the group? I know there's one person who said in the chat that they had been to Arnhem before. I'm not sure if you're able to have a mic and you want to speak on that. I think that's kind of interesting. Too much pressure.
Can you hear
Oh,
me?
he says wait one. Okay. What's up, Hugh?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we hear
Okay,
something.
I'll beg off.
Hello, everyone. My name is Corporal Arsenault. Back in 2015, me and some of friends of mine, at least one of which is still in the military as well, went on a bit of a Euro trip, mostly for historical reasons, visiting museums and the like. And we spent a fair amount of time in the Netherlands. His father specifically was in the airborne, so Arnhem was a big thing for him. We spent a decent amount of time there. The Arnhem Airborne Museum. I can't speak so much on a lot of the other historical things in the Netherlands, but it will be definitely a big thing for myself to be able to go back there, and especially to visit the remainder of like everything else that we're going to visit. Also, if anyone gets the chance, definitely go to Vimy. It's a very powerful monument.
Yeah, fantastic. So thank you, Mr. Arsenault, for that. I couldn't agree more. Like, I think this is a fantastic opportunity, fantastic trip. I will agree with you 100% on Vimy. It's a beautiful monument. A personal tidbit of information. My father grew up basically 15 kilometers from Vimy Ridge in a little town called Arleux in France. So not only when I visited Vimy, I got to see the incredible Canadian monument, but I also got to see my dad's hometown. So it's very thanks for that. Appreciate it. Okay, Hugh, I think you had one more last thing, and I think we're going to wrap up. Once again, I'm very apologetic about the technical issues. If you had any technical issues, I will send out the recording link as soon as we're done, and or as soon as the video is processed, and we'll try to reconvene for next month and hopefully not have any issues. So I apologize once again. Hugh, you get the last word.
Oh, I just wanted to make one quick historical observation. It sort of stems from the current book I'm reading, but the good corporal on the presentation had highlighted the destruction of Rotterdam. The destruction of Rotterdam was right at the start of the last end of the so-called phony war, and this sort of was the first indication of the power of air power to destroy cities. And that was the first taste of it. At the time, Churchill was just within a couple of weeks, appointed the new Prime Minister of Great Britain, of course, had the responsibility for leading us through until everybody sort of came together and went back on the offensive. But he was deathly afraid, given the sample of what happened with Rotterdam, what could happen to London and any other cities, because after the fall of France, there was nothing really stopping Hitler outside of his own arrogance, you could say, that England was next. And the Rotterdam sort of proved what air power could do. And of course, Bomber Command proved to the Germans exactly what happened to them with the same type of power. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic piece of context there from Hugh. So once again, on behalf of the Planning Committee, thank you all for being here. We ended up having 35 participants, which is more than half. That's great. I think that's great. So thank you for joining us tonight. And once again, we'll reconvene next month and hopefully be able to resolve all the issues that we had tonight. So thanks again. I'll stop the recording and we'll go into admin questions. Thank you.